Welcome to Keep Betting, the YouTube channel talking sports betting on a daily basis. I am CC, and we're back to talk college basketball day 3, Friday, November 12th, day 4 maybe. Opening day, we did pretty well. We went 2-0, 1-0 in the plays that I talked about on the video for opening day in Milwaukee -6.5. We also added in the Discord Minnesota -6. The line just fell too far throughout the day. Added that, they both won. So good start of the year. The last couple days have been, tomorrow will be day 4. I said day 3 would be day 4. There's a pretty boring day overall yesterday, and then today's we have one bet. There's like 16 games on the slate. It's a pretty boring night overall. I haven't even really watched any college basketball, but tomorrow is not tomorrow. There is a ton of games, and let's hop straight into breaking those down. So I asked on Twitter, on my own Twitter, games that you would want to see me broke down. There were a couple answers. If you ever want a game to go more in depth about, I will start posting those. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at the College Caps, and I will make sure to get to those games as in depth as I can. So the first one we're going to discuss isn't the first on the board like we normally do. It is Alabama -12 versus South Dakota State. I have it in my notes if you see me looking like hard left, but Alabama -12 versus South Dakota State. I believe the line is 161 and comes up because I have a opinion not really on the side as much as the total. Alabama, a high tempo team. We talked about this in the previews, and they scored 93 in their first game. So it's the same thought that I'm going to continue going with, is that Alabama is going to run the NATO's run and gun. They're going to continue doing it. South Dakota State has no intent on not doing it as well. They are, if it'll load, they're 45th in offensive efficiency. They're going to run just like Alabama. They scored 81 versus Bradley, who's a pretty good basketball team. And Bradley scored 65. It's mostly just bad shooting. So I had this one at Alabama winning 88-76, leaving some money on the table or some points on the table for the over 161. I would have had it to play at 159, so I'm not touching it, but my opinion is the over. I think that Alabama probably would be the side over anything. I think that they have the talent to slowly put this one away, but 12 being a very backdoorable number. If you watch the Michigan game, I would lay off the 12. Up next, we have Western Michigan and Michigan State. Under 140.5 is my lane on this game. The person who asked, I believe, asked for a side. I don't really have a side. I think that Michigan State has a good team. They don't have any go-to scorers in particular, and so I think that they're going to struggle to blow out teams. I think that they do beat most teams that they play. They're still a decent team. I've said that they're bad on this, and I meant relative compared to the Kansases, which was shown they got smacked by Kansas. And I just think that they are going to struggle to put teams out of the, what is the spread, 24.5. So I just don't think that they can beat teams like that currently. On the other end, Western Michigan has 2 double-digit scorers. They're not that big. I don't see them being able to do much. So are they going to cover 24? I don't know. It'll be close, but I don't think that either team really scores that much. I could see Michigan State slowly getting up there in the numbers just because the talent discrepancies, and it's shown. And the only way that they're going to get to 24 is good defense. Tom Izzo's always going to have a team that's going to play good defense. I had this number at 76.58, leaving a little bit of room on the under. Again, something I'm not touching, but it is my opinion on that game. Finally, there was one more request, and that was Byu San Diego State. So I think this one was interesting. It was actually one that I almost bet on. BYU is a really good team. I believe we didn't talk about them in the sleeper thing, but it was the 4th team. If I was to make 4 teams for my sleeper, so it would have been my 14th, is BYU. They have a good team, and I don't think that San Diego State does. Here's San Diego State's preseason 3-man weave. And Matt Bradley, he was at Cal last year. He was an absolute bucket. If you watch Cal, he was their team at Cal. And I think pretty similar here. He is basically their team. And so I think this is a team that BYU can easily beat, but BYU looked really bad last week. And so last game, not last week. And so I am just not going to put my money on a team that hasn't proven themselves. So I would have to wait to see BYU do well before I bet on this game, but I do lean BYU at 2.5. I had this number at 4.5 or 5. I think it was like 4.8, which would basically be a 4.5, just trying to demote the position I have. So I would say 4.5 would be the number that I had. So I'd probably play this one at like 1, but I'm not going to. I'm going to lay off BYU overall. I believe this one's moving up. It's at 3.5 now. So it's moving the right way. It's good news for my projections, but no play for me. One final request I forgot to mention was Jens Betts asked about West Virginia and Pittsburgh. He faded Pittsburgh in game 1. The team total, he made it very clear that Pittsburgh has no offensive scores, and he was completely correct. I didn't even look into that total because Citadel is a basically zero defense, high tempo team, and so to take a team total under is just, it never even caught my eye, but he explained that they have absolutely no scores. And after that game, they scored about 63. It was completely proven correct, and shout out to him. Great call. He was in our Discord, and he said it, and hope some people made some money off that. I didn't bet it personally, but now looking back, I wish that I did because they looked awful. That said, again here, are they going to be able to score versus West Virginia at West Virginia? Probably not, because this is a scrappy defensive team, one of the toughest places to play in the nation. And West Virginia has talent, per always. Do they have the scores, though? And as you can see here, they scored 60 versus a pretty bad Oakland defense. And I'm going to have to go with no. So the lean here was, what was the number? It was on so the under here was 137.5. And I definitely leaned towards the under here. I had Pitt at 56 points, which is just crazy to think about. But I leaned the under in West Virginia versus Pitt. Next is a game we actually have an official play on, and I wanted to toss in another bet because Milwaukee did well, and so we're gonna keep this momentum streak riding. So we took Oregon -6 versus SMU. Oregon is just a really good team that brings in some transfers. Yes, thought that they would have to have a little bit of time to mesh just two really big names in the transfer portal. Both came to Oregon. So they have Will Richardson, who is one of the best players in the nation currently, and I believe I have that pulled up. Yeah, so going to Evan Maya. I was told about this website. This guy is a modeler. I had never heard of him until this year. And so I'll put the description, his website in the description. It's a free website, and it seems to be pretty accurate. I feel like he doesn't update everything too fast, but he has a player rankings or ratings. And we're going to show you out of the top 100, if it'll load. So out of the top 100, Oregon has 3 players in Will Richardson. Well, where did he go? Will Richardson, Davion Harmon, and one more would be Guerrier. So they have 3 players in the top 100. Sounds about right. SMU has just Davis. And so that's not the epitome of as to why I'm betting this, but I do think that the talent matchup is just completely different. Oregon is a much better team. Also, to be able to get the ball in somebody like Will Richardson's hands or Guerrier, I might be just mispronouncing his last name, but to be able to get the ball into their hands and put this game away if they need it, I feel very comfortable with 4 double-digit scores and Jacob Young coming off the bench, which is just ridiculous. I love Jacob Young at Rutgers last year, so I think that 6 is a really weak number, and I would play this at 6, 6.5, 7. I believe it's at 6.5 or 7 right now. I think that 7 is still a great number to take. I would still lean this way up to like an 8.5, but I would probably lay off the bet overall. So we're on Oregon -6. That is the official play for tomorrow. We actually have 3 currently. We have a 4th one, which tips off in 2 hours. So I would imagine in the Hawaii versus Northern Colorado game. So we have 4 in the next 24 hours. So should be an interesting time. We have UCLA versus Villanova. This is a very big one to talk about. Let's see. UCLA versus Villanova. Lines are at 4.5 basically right now. They hit 5 there for a minute. They opened at 5, it says, but I don't believe that's right. They're at 4.5, 5s. And at this rate, I lean completely towards Villanova. They just have too many scores. So look at Villanova's team. Gillespie is, first off, to be able to bet on a team with a point guard in Colin Gillespie is always a good feeling. He is a rock-solid point guard, and then they just fill the entire lineup with another great team. You know that they're going to be, I think this is funny, Colin Gillespie, extra year. How long has he been here? Samuel's extra year. It's just, they've been here for so long. It cracks me up. But Villanova's always going to be a good team, well-coached. You know what you're going to get. On the other side, would this line be 4.5, 5? if UCLA didn't make the run last year. And I know that this isn't the team that we saw in November of 2020. It is basically the same starting lineup, but I understand it's not the same team. This is a team that lost by a significant amount to San Diego State, overtime versus Pepperdine. They beat Cal, but it was a much better game than it looks. Marquette by 9. They beat Utah by 2. They lost to Ohio State. They ended up, so they scraped by Colorado, but then they lost to Colorado by 10 in February. They lost to Washington State. They lost to USC. They lost to Stanford. This isn't the team that did this. This isn't that team. And so, yes, they made a run to the Final Four. It was crazy. The game winner, absolutely insane. Sucks. I had Gonzaga futures, so it was just an insane game. But are they going to be a 4.5-point favorite if they don't make that run? And I just have to think no. They have good players. They are a good team, but they aren't Villanova by any means. At home, I want to pull the trigger on Villanova, but I have not yet. I think if a 5 comes again, I'm going to have to. I like Villanova to win straight up here. And so getting 4.5, I actually had Villanova at minus 1.5. My only worry being that I maybe am not seeing something. Maybe there's an injury that's not known or just something that I'm missing here. So 4.5 just seems like an odd line. And so I'll be looking deeper into this. But this is just kind of like a quick scan to make these videos. So let's scroll through here. We're at the 12-minute mark. Let's scroll through here and see if we have any opinions on games. Richmond opened 3.5. It's at 6.5. I think if you can get under 6, that's probably a pretty good number. 5.5 would be fine. I never saw 3.5. I don't know how I feel, if that was even possible to grab. I'm not sure. This total looks like it's going up. I'm seeing a 141, so I still lean the under, obviously. Wright State versus Marshall. This should be an absolute shootout. It's 159. It seems about right. I really like Wright State. Marshall has a pretty good team. I would lean Wright State here, but not by much at all. 3.5 is probably a pretty good number. I think Ohio State needs a redemption game. 19.5 is pretty interesting. It seems about right. They looked awful last game. They hit a buzzer beater to win. It was a pretty insane game. But nothing here. I think going down, the games that I would have any kind of opinion on, I would think that Furman can keep up with Louisville. I would say plus 10.5 would probably be a good number. I'm seeing 10s now, but if you could get a 10.5 with Furman, would be a good number. Continuing down, George Mason looked really good versus Stony Brook. Stony Brook actually has a pretty decent lineup, and George Mason beat the brakes off of them. So to get a 6.5, if you could get a flat 6, I feel like this would be the side. It's George Mason minus 6. UAB, Morehead State, interesting. This number isn't very much bigger than Auburn's was. I think Auburn's was 15. So interesting. I am a Blazer, but I just think that 13.5 is a lot. They have a really good team. I think that UAB probably goes to March Madness this year, but 13.5, a lot of points. I don't know how I feel about that. Continuing down, Rice had a really good game last game. 14.5 to Houston. Houston has a really good team. I think that's a Bagnor number at 14.5. I would like Rice at 14.5 if I was to take anything. Could very well easily see a backdoor coming in here. Maddox does this from time to time. It'll just kind of toss you back up to the top of the screen. Okay, so continuing through, Siu Edwardsville versus Chicago State. Chicago State won their first game in God knows how long the other day. And so a fade of Chicago State strictly because of that probably wouldn't be too crazy of thought process, but Siu Edwardsville was a pretty good team. They played Marquette to a 10-point game, I believe, and they shot pretty bad. So they're a good team. I would definitely lean towards this side at 11.5, even though it's 11.5. I think that I had this line pretty high, and so I would lean 11.5 here. Pitt versus West Virginia, we talked about. Pepperdine is going down. This was interesting. I actually circled Pepperdine at 5.5, so now to see 4 3.5s. Maybe I'm missing out on something. I need to look back at this. Not to bet in particular, but just so that I can understand where my numbers were wrong in the sense that it moved the opposite way of what I assumed. Washington State is moving down to 14 now. I'm seeing an unjuiced 107, 14 versus Seattle. I think this is still probably a little too many points. I would like plus 16 to back Seattle, probably plus or minus 11 to back Washington State. Neither of those are coming. So Oregon is at a 7 now on Bookmaker, 6.5 juice at Pinnacle. So that's interesting. Scrolling through. Yeah, I think that's basically all I have. I'm curious to see how Navy plays after a really big first game. Arkansas Pine Bluff, this one is actually interesting. Arkansas Pine Bluff, awful team. Pretty much a fade no matter what. You can fade them in any capacity always. Playing Colorado State, who scored, 107 opening day? Something, just put up some numbers. So I think the Colorado State can do as they please. Pine Bluff, or is 33 points too many? I have no clue. I don't have that number in front of me. I would feel like 33 is probably a number I would lay off of, just because I don't want to lay 33 points. But Colorado State has the team to do it. And if you're going to fade a team by 33, it would be Pine Bluff. So that is an interesting look, but that is all I have on this slate. If you enjoy this kind of content and you would like, So that's all I have on the slate. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button if you liked this video, and leave in the comments if you have any questions on games. I'm on this YouTube channel basically all day, and I will answer as many questions as I can as fast as I can, so maybe I can help you before placing your wagers. That said, if you want the bets I take on a daily basis, the link in the description will take you to the Discord, where I post everything I'm on a daily basis, and we just talk sports all day. But that's that. The official play would be Oregon -6. I hope that we can keep this little momentum rolling that we have, winning the Wisconsin-Milwaukee bet and headed into Oregon tomorrow. So best of luck, and let's make some money.